Shedeur Sanders just flipped the script. After getting dropped, he has landed a massive deal that stunned NFL owners and rewrote his future overnight.
I'm just thankful, just for the opportunity.
But here's the real twist. This move wasn't about money at all. It was about something far more shocking, and I'm going to spill all the details in this video. Shedeur Sanders bags huge deal. Shedeur Sanders was counted out, dismissed as just another rising star who couldn't survive the brutal politics of the NFL. When he got dropped, critics said his career was done. But instead of crumbling, he turned the tables with a game-changing deal that no one saw coming. NFL owners were blindsided, fans were stunned, and the sports world hasn't stopped buzzing since. But here's the kicker. This deal isn't just about contracts or paychecks. There's a hidden play, a deeper move behind Shedeur's decision. And once you uncover what's really driving it, you'll see why this moment changes everything. Looking back at Shedeur's history with the NFL, you find some disturbing truths. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to tell you today is one of the most shocking, controversial, and frankly disgusting stories in modern NFL history. This is the story of how a quarterback who should have been a top 10 pick, who had every credential imaginable, who was blessed with otherworldly talent, got systematically destroyed by a league that decided to teach him and his legendary father a lesson they would never forget. This is the story of Shedeur Sanders and how the NFL's most powerful owners orchestrated one of the most blatant cases of collusion and blackballing we've ever witnessed in professional sports. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. While they thought they were burying his career, they actually set the stage for what might be the most lucrative and shocking comeback story in NFL history. Let me paint you the picture of what really happened behind closed doors, because what you're about to hear will make your blood boil with righteous indignation. Picture this: January 2025. Shedeur Sanders has just led the Colorado Buffaloes to an absolutely spectacular 11-2 record, completely transforming a program that was an absolute disaster before his arrival. This young man didn't just play quarterback. He was a magician with the football, a surgeon with his precision, and a general commanding his troops with the kind of leadership that reminded everyone exactly whose son he was. The pre-draft buzz was absolutely electric. Draft experts, analysts, and scouts were calling him everything from a generational talent to the most pro-ready quarterback in the draft. His combination of arm strength, accuracy, mobility, and football IQ was drawing comparisons to some of the greatest quarterbacks who have ever played the game. But here's where the story takes its first dark turn, and where we begin to see the ugly underbelly of NFL politics rear its hideous head. During the NFL Combine in February 2025, Shedeur made a strategic decision that would come back to haunt him in ways nobody could have predicted. He chose to conduct formal interviews with only the top 17, a move that was completely standard for presumed high draft picks, but one that would be twisted and weaponized against him by owners who were already looking for reasons to tear him down.
The league decided it didn't like how Shedeur interviewed. He said some things he should not have said, and he will tell you that to this day. I got a little carried away. But he's as tough a kid, tough a quarterback as I've ever seen. His arm is at least as good as Brady's. It's Brady-esque.
What happened in those interviews was where things really started to go sideways. According to multiple league insiders, Shedeur was described as brash and arrogant and unprofessional during these sessions. In one particularly damaging encounter with a top 7 team, he arrived completely unprepared for a playbook installation session, and instead of showing humility or eagerness to learn, he grilled the executives on their plans to support him. Think about the audacity of that moment. Here's a college quarterback sitting across from billion-dollar franchise executives, and instead of proving he belonged at their table, he's demanding to know what they're going to do for him. It was a level of presumption that sent shockwaves through NFL front offices, and word traveled fast through the tight-knit community of league executives. But it gets worse. Shedeur was also accused of sandbagging, which is deliberately underperforming in meetings with teams he didn't want to play for. This wasn't just confidence. This was calculated disrespect for organizations that had spent valuable time and resources evaluating him as a potential franchise cornerstone. And hovering over all of this like a dark cloud was the imposing presence of Deion coach Prime Sanders himself. When an anonymous NFL quarterbacks coach dared to call Shedeur arrogant, Deion threatened public exposure, which league insiders said completely chilled the feedback loops between teams and the Sanders camp. The media statements that followed were like gasoline on an already raging fire. In February and March 2025, Shedeur told ESPN that he primarily watches his own tape for film study, calling it disrespectful to model after anyone but his father, the best player to ever play. Can you imagine the reaction in NFL war rooms when they heard that? Here's a kid who's essentially saying he's too good to study the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, that watching Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or Peyton Manning would somehow be beneath him because daddy was the greatest athlete who ever lived. For many, it was unbelievable. But Deion wasn't content to let his son's arrogance significance speak for itself. On a podcast, he dropped what would become known as the nuclear option, hinting at an Eli Manning maneuver, stating that certain cities ain't gonna happen. For those who don't remember, the Eli Manning maneuver refers to when Eli Manning refused to play for the San Diego Chargers in 2004, forcing a draft day trade to the New York Giants. It was a move that rubbed many in the league the wrong way, and here was Deion Sanders essentially threatening to pull the same stunt with his son. This was the moment when whispers started turning into coordinated action behind closed doors. Multiple reports began surfacing that NFL owners, not general managers, not coaches, but the actual owners themselves, were having conversations about Shedeur Sanders. These weren't football conversations about his arm strength or pocket presence. These were personal conversations about teaching the Sanders family some humility. The East-West Shrine game and Colorado's Pro Day in March and April provided more fuel for the fire. At the We Ain't Hard to Find showcase, Shedeur threw in front of approximately 80 NFL personnel representatives. The optics were certainly impressive. Warm embraces with Denver Broncos owner Sean Payton, extensive conversations between Deion and Cleveland Browns owner Jimmy Haslam, and a massive 15-person contingent from the New York Giants. But even here, in what should have been Shedeur's moment to shine, scouts were struggling with how to evaluate him. One veteran scout noted his unique background, the fact that he'd been exposed to figures like NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell and Tom Brady from a young age made traditional evaluation metrics almost impossible to apply. Meanwhile, Deion was publicly decrying what he called ignorant negativity toward his son, claiming it was all backlash related to his own success. But what he didn't realize, or perhaps he did realize and simply didn't care, was that his very presence was making things exponentially worse for Shedeur with every passing day. Reports began emerging that multiple NFL owners were having private conversations about removing Shedeur from their draft boards entirely. This wasn't about football talent. Everyone acknowledged he could play. This was about power, respect, and sending a message that the NFL was still controlled by a select group of billionaires who wouldn't tolerate being disrespected by a 22-year-old quarterback and his Hall of Fame father. The stage was being set for one of the most shocking draft nights in NFL history, where a quarterback who should have heard his name called in the top 10 was about to experience a fall from grace so dramatic, so calculated, and so personal that it would expose the darkest elements of NFL ownership politics for the entire world to see. When NFL owners were planning, what they didn't anticipate was that their coordinated attack on Shedeur Sanders would ultimately backfire in the most spectacular way imaginable, setting the stage for a comeback story that would reshape not just his career, but the entire power dynamic between players and owners in the modern NFL. The draft night disaster. April 24, 2025, will go down as one of the darkest nights in NFL draft history, not because of what happened on the field, but because of what happened in the shadowy backrooms of NFL front offices across America. What unfolded that evening was nothing short of a coordinated assassination of a young man's dreams, orchestrated by some of the most powerful people in professional sports. Shedeur Sanders entered draft night projected as a top 10 pick by virtually every major draft analyst. Mel Kiper Jr., who had been evaluating draft prospects for decades, had Sanders rated as the best quarterback in the entire draft. This wasn't some fringe opinion from a clickbait website. This was the gold standard of draft evaluation, telling the entire football world that Shedeur Sanders was special. But as the first round began, something sinister started to become apparent. Team after team with quarterback needs passed on Shedeur. The Pittsburgh Steelers, who desperately needed a franchise quarterback, passed on him twice, once in the first round and again in the third round. The Las Vegas Raiders, despite having connections to Shedeur through Tom Brady, who was now a minority owner and had mentored Shedeur, passed on him 3 separate times at picks 3, 58, and 68. This wasn't just unusual, it was historically unprecedented. Quarterbacks with Shedeur's credentials and connections simply don't fall like this unless something catastrophic has happened behind the scenes. And that's exactly what had occurred. WFN's Boomer Esiason, a former NFL quarterback with deep connections throughout the league, dropped the bombshell that would expose the entire conspiracy. According to Esiason, multiple league owners had instructed their front offices to scrub Shedeur entirely from their draft boards. The directive was simple and brutal. Take him off. We don't want this entitled person on my team. Let that sink in for a moment. These weren't football decisions being made by general managers and coaches based on game film and combined performance. These were personal vendettas being executed by billionaire owners who felt disrespected by a 22-year-old kid and his famous father. When asked about his decision, Esiason blamed Shedeur's combine bravado, particularly his promises to turn around team cultures, combined with Deion's overwhelming influence. But this explanation only scratched the surface of what was really happening. The truth is, this wasn't about humbling anyone. It was about power, control, and sending a message that nobody, not even the son of a Hall of Famer, was bigger than the league's ownership structure. Skip Bayless added another explosive element to the story, accusing Tom Brady of actively sabotaging the Raiders' potential interest in Sanders. According to Bayless, Brady told the Raiders not to take Shedeur. If true, then this represented an unthinkable betrayal because Brady had been mentoring Shedeur, building a relationship with him, only to potentially stab him in the back when it mattered most. Michael Irvin, the Hall of Fame receiver and longtime NFL insider, called the entire situation a $50 million robbery by owners that had absolutely nothing to do with Shedeur's talent or ability to play football at the highest level. But perhaps the most damning revelation came from what happened with the Baltimore Ravens. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, Baltimore had actually planned to select Shedeur in the 5th round, but passed after he signaled his unwillingness to sit behind Lamar Jackson. Instead, they opted for Carson Vincent, a much less heralded prospect. This decision perfectly captured the impossible position that Shedeur found himself in. Here was a team willing to draft him, but only if he accepted a backup role behind an MVP caliber quarterback. For most prospects, this would have been a dream scenario, learning from one of the best quarterbacks in the game while developing in a winning organization. But Shedeur's camp had apparently made it clear that sitting on the bench wasn't acceptable, echoing Dion's pre-draft warnings about certain cities. As the rounds continued to tick by, the football world watched in stunned disbelief. Social media exploded with accusations of racism, with many pointing out the troubling pattern of how black quarterbacks are often subjected to different standards and expectations than their white counterparts. Even Donald Trump weighed in, questioning whether NFL owners were stupid for passing on such obvious talent. Finally, with the 144th overall pick in the 5th round, the Cleveland Browns selected Shedeur Sanders. The choice of Cleveland was particularly significant, and not necessarily in a good way.
And Cleveland is a boring-ass city, as everyone knows. Even their own LeBron Diddy James left that city to go to Los Angeles. So, yeah, I declined my selection because I want to be drafted by another team that plays in a good city like Los Angeles, Miami, or New York.
This was a franchise that had been in complete disarray for years, with a dysfunctional front office, questionable coaching decisions, and a fan base that had endured decades of disappointment. The reaction from Browns owner Jimmy Haslam was telling, a slow, reserved clap that sparked immediate backlash. This wasn't the enthusiastic embrace of a franchise-changing talent. This was the reluctant acknowledgement of a pick that had been forced upon him by circumstances beyond his control. Antonio Brown, never one to mince words, later accused Haslam of breaking an unspoken agreement among owners not to draft Shedeur at all. According to this theory, Cleveland's selection of Shedeur represented a betrayal of the coordinated effort to keep him out of the league entirely. The most heartbreaking part of this entire saga was Shedeur's response to his dramatic fall. Rather than lashing out or expressing bitterness, he took the high road, saying he was blessed and focused on earning his opportunities. This level of grace and maturity under such extraordinary circumstances only highlighted how wrong the owners had been about his character. But the real tragedy wasn't just what happened to Shedeur Sanders that night. It was what it revealed about the NFL's power structure.
This is the biggest crime since Blockbuster went out of business. This draft just lost all credibility. How do you not draft Shedeur in the 1st round? You know what's wrong with this league. Too much analytics, not enough aura.
Here was undeniable proof that talent, preparation, and achievement could be completely meaningless if you crossed the wrong people. It was a stark reminder that despite all the talk about meritocracy and equal opportunity, the NFL remained an old boys club where billionaire owners could destroy careers with a few whispered conversations. The draft night massacre of Shedeur Sanders represented more than just one player's fall from grace. It was a coordinated attack on anyone who dared to challenge the established order, a warning shot fired across the bow of future prospects who might think they could dictate terms to NFL ownership. But here's where things get interesting. These powerful men had made one critical miscalculation. They had underestimated the resilience, determination, and business acumen of both Shedeur Sanders and his legendary father. What they thought would be the end of his story was actually just the beginning of the most remarkable comeback in NFL history. And the deals that Shedeur was about to sign would prove that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting mad, it's getting rich. The shocking comeback. While NFL owners thought they had buried Shedeur Sanders' career in the 5th round, they had unknowingly created something far more powerful and lucrative than they could have ever imagined. What happened next represents one of the most brilliant reversals of fortune in sports history, as Shedeur transformed his draft night humiliation into a multi-million-dollar empire that would make those same owners who tried to destroy him sick with regret. But first, let's talk about just how bad things got for Shedeur in Cleveland, because the owner's revenge plot was far from over. Shedeur signed his 4-year, $4.6 million rookie contract with the Browns on May 19, 2025, which included a $447,380 signing bonus. While this might sound like good money to a lot of people, it was a fraction of what he would have earned as a top 10 pick. We're talking about a difference of tens of millions of dollars. But the financial insult was nothing compared to the professional humiliation that awaited him. Shedeur found himself relegated to scout team quarterback duties, earning approximately $1.16 million while practicing against starters like Joe Flacco. Through the first 2 weeks of the 2025 season, as the Browns stumbled to 2-0 to start, Shedeur hadn't seen a single snap of meaningful game action. The treatment he received from the coaching staff was nothing short of disgraceful. Cleveland Browns HC Kevin. Stefanski's comments drew widespread criticism for what many viewed as blatant disrespect towards Shedeur. Analysts even began describing his situation as being stuck in hell, a talented quarterback wasting away on the scout team of one of the NFL's most dysfunctional franchises. Hall of Fame running back Eric Dickerson became one of Shedeur's most vocal defenders, and his comments revealed the true depth of the conspiracy against the young quarterback. On the Dan Patrick Show, Dickerson claimed that the NFL explicitly told teams not to draft him, adding that they wanted to punish Shedeur for his perceived flashiness. Dickerson called the situation collusion and ripped the horrible Browns organization.
Some of them aren't ready, that's why some of them fail. And it depends on what team you go to. I mean, if you go to a team like the Browns, I mean, honestly, that's not a good football team. I hate to see him. I wish they would have cut him.
Coming from a Hall of Famer who had his own battles with league authority during the 1980s, these weren't just empty words. They were the observations of someone who understood exactly what Shedeur was going through. The situation in Cleveland's preseason games became almost unwatchable for Shedeur supporters. In the team's final preseason game, Shedeur was thrown into impossible situations with 4th and 5th string players, then benched for Tyler Huntley with 2 minutes remaining in what can only be described as a deliberate humiliation. Skip Bayless, watching this travesty unfold, declared it just disgraceful.
I just watched what happened to Shedeur Sanders in the Cleveland Browns' third and final preseason game. And I'm outraged, I'm sickened, and I'm saddened by the way Shedeur continues to be treated in the National Football League, now by those sorry-ass Browns and sorry-ass Kevin Stefanski.
But here's where the story takes its most dramatic turn. Because while NFL owners were busy trying to destroy Shedeur Sanders, the football player, they had completely failed to account for Shedeur Sanders, the businessman and brand. In what can only be described as a masterclass in crisis management and brand building, Shedeur and his team went on an absolute tear in the endorsement market, signing deal after deal that would make his NFL salary look like pocket change. The first major move came on April 9th, 2025, when Shedeur signed a multi-year exclusive autograph trading card deal with Panini America. This wasn't just any trading card deal. This made Shedeur a key face of Panini's college-to-pro pipeline, alongside other premium athletes. While the financial terms weren't disclosed, industry insiders suggested this was worth multiple millions over the life of the contract. 8 days later, on April 17th, 2025, Shedeur landed a partnership with Polo Ralph Lauren for their Polo 67 EDP fragrance campaign. This represented his first major fashion endorsement pre-draft, promoting the Design Your Dream theme that would become prophetic given his circumstances. The timing was perfect. While NFL executives were plotting his downfall, Shedeur was building relationships with luxury brands that saw his value beyond football. The deal that really showed the football world what was happening came on April 28, 2025, when Shedeur announced a multi-year partnership with Delta Airlines. This wasn't just an endorsement. This was a major corporation making a statement that they believed in Shedeur Sanders regardless of what NFL owners thought about him. The Nike partnership extension was perhaps the most significant of all, representing a continuation of his existing NIL deal into the professional era. While Nike had worked with Shedeur during his college career, extending this relationship into his NFL tenure sent a clear message that one of the world's most powerful sports brands saw long-term value in the Shedeur brand. The most innovative aspect of Shedeur's Cleveland contract was a clause that nobody saw coming, the prime equity provision that gave him 10% of team NIL revenue generated from his likeness, including jersey sales and other merchandise. This was revolutionary thinking that essentially turned Shedeur into a business partner rather than just an employee. When you add up all these deals, the Panini contract, Polo Ralph Lauren, Delta Airlines, Nike extension, and his NFL contract with its innovative revenue-sharing provisions, Shedeur had assembled a portfolio worth well over $5 million, and that's just what was publicly disclosed. Industry experts suggest the true value could be significantly higher when accounting for performance bonuses and undisclosed terms. But perhaps the most telling aspect of Shedeur's post-draft success was how he handled the adversity. In media availability sessions, he consistently demonstrated remarkable maturity and perspective.
You know, I'm blessed to come out here every day. Regardless of the situation, regardless of anything, you know, I know my time, whenever that is, I'll be ready for it, and I'm going to embrace that.
When asked about competing for roster spots, Shedeur showed incredible confidence.
Whenever it's time for me to get out there and play, I'm going to play. Whenever it's time for the lights to come on, I'm going to do my thing.
This wasn't the broken, humbled young man that NFL owners had tried to create. This was someone who had taken their worst efforts to destroy him and turned them into fuel for building something bigger and more valuable than they had ever imagined. The irony is absolutely delicious. While owners thought they were teaching Shedeur a lesson about respecting authority, they had actually given him the greatest gift possible: motivation, sympathy from the public, and an underdog story that brands absolutely love to associate with. Trade rumors began swirling as early as September 2025, with insiders suggesting the Browns could move Shedeur before the deadline, with teams like the Cincinnati Bengals being floated as potential destinations. But at this point, Shedeur held all the leverage. He had proven he could build a multi-million-dollar brand regardless of his football situation, making him infinitely more valuable than just another backup quarterback. The real shock came when people started doing the math. Shedeur had potentially earned more money through endorsements in the months following his draft humiliation than many first-round picks made from their rookie contracts alone. He had turned the owner's punishment into his greatest opportunity. The most satisfying aspect of this entire saga was watching the same owners who had conspired against him start to realize what they had done. As Shedeur's brand value skyrocketed and his endorsement deals multiplied, it became clear that their coordinated attack had backfired spectacularly. They had tried to humble a young man and his family, but instead had created a powerful symbol of resilience and determination that brands couldn't wait to associate with. They had attempted to bury a football career, but had accidentally launched a business empire. And the most beautiful part, this was just the beginning. With his proven ability to generate massive value outside of football, combined with his undeniable talent on the field, Shedeur Sanders had positioned himself for whatever came next in a way that no fifth-round pick in NFL history ever had. The owners thought they were writing the ending to Shedeur Sanders' story. Instead, they had just given him the perfect opening chapter for something much bigger, much more lucrative, and much more powerful than they ever could have imagined. How do they say it? Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting rich. And Shedeur Sanders has just shown the entire world exactly how that's done. What do you think about his new deal? Let me know in the comments section. And for more videos like this, click on this next card on your screen.